You're listening to Evergreen Media Network. I am Cindy Schwartz, and this is the Patient Partner Show. We're a podcast as well on Spreaker, so look us up. Jeannie Rowland, my co-host, has got a topic today. I am calling ER, emergency room overcrowding. And Jeannie, I have talked with people, friends, family, whatever, that have gone to the emergency room with what they felt, as the patient, something that was an emergency. And what happened to them is also what we're going to talk about, is how they were kept in a wheelchair or, whatever apparatus, and just stacked up like a number, like you're going to go to a deli counter and take a number. The next one that's the most serious goes in. I get that. It's called triage, if I remember correctly, where they do it on the battlefield. They do it all over the place with medical people. So many patients there at one time to try to figure out who's going to, be the most serious, who they can save and whatever. There's some people that they figure they can't save, and, stuff like that happens. It does. But I know people for a fact that have said, I feel like I'm having a heart attack, to try to get into the emergency room sooner. And that didn't help. It didn't work for them. So what are we talking about that today? It's quite the subject, really.
Well, it is. It's after you go to the hospital and you're in the ER and they've determined that you need to be admitted to the hospital.
Okay.
That they stack you in the hallway, either on a gurney, or most of the time would be on a gurney, sometimes in a wheelchair, waiting for a room to open up. And sometimes, you can spend hours waiting for a room. And sometimes people have spent days in the ER hallway waiting for a room. My sister did that in a hospital she was in Florida. And finally, she was to the point where she was released before she ever got to a room.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's dangerous for patients. They say that medical errors are more likely to be done while they do the stacking in the hallways. Patients get forgotten. I know one gentleman was talking about a woman who was on an EKG monitor being in the hallway on a gurney, and they had the EKG leads hooked up to her chest, and she was either sedated or unconscious, but she was left in the hallway with her chest exposed so that he and his grandson and anyone else who was in that hallway was able to see her breast,
mm-hmm.
which to me is just, totally disrespectful, frightening. But, the thing is that there is a nursing shortage. And if you go in at certain times, like on a weekend or at night, sometimes there isn't as much staff on duty on the floors. So that could be a holdup from people. It had gotten so serious that CMS, the Centers for Medicaid Services, got involved with a hospital system to track wait times over 1 hour for a treatment space,
mm-hmm.
leave without being seen due to excessive delays.
Yeah.
The other thing they was looking for was board over 4 hours when admitted, and having a total ED stay exceeding 8 hours, because they get billed for all this.
Mm-hmm.
So the more time that you spend in ER, the more that Medicare gets billed. So they were wanting to find out what was going on too. So far, this report that CMS did has not been published. So it'd be interesting to see what their results are.
Yeah, definitely. One of my first questions would be, and I'm just throwing this out, we're not medical people. We don't pretend to be. We're not doctors. We're not lawyers, anything like that. Just different articles that we run across and want to expound upon and try to, throw out there if it helps someone make a different decision or a better decision for their health care. My first question would be is if you are, so I'm thinking at any given point, there's a hospital system that keeps track of what rooms are available, what services are available ASAP.
Right.
And so if you being the medical personnel, were going to admit a person, there would be a reason why you would do that. And then it would be somewhere, I would think, that you could plug into your system saying what rooms are available. So you would know how many people at that point were being stacked up, for lack of a better word, or being, corridored, or whatever the proper terminology is. I don't know what you would do differently. I totally understand that a legitimate emergency situation is always first, regardless of other things. No question about that. But I mean, I just don't know what the answer is. You're given one kind of scenario, Jeannie, that there aren't enough nurses to process this stuff, or maybe that's what it is, and there's not enough administration or those kind of personnel people to process this stuff. But why it goes on for hours at a time, and certainly the lady that you talk about that's chest was exposed, there's nothing, an excuse available ever, and there's never going to be one that is a situation in a medical setting. Not gonna happen. You can't explain that away to anyone. But the other, I don't know. I've had my own situations in emergency room settings where I went to another hospital. I just literally called somebody and said, I know that I need help, but it's not happening here for hours, and I just drive me 25 miles away. And I did. Yeah. I went to another hospital, and they took me in right away. So, I mean, I shouldn't have done that, but I did, and I got better care, and I got better. So, I don't know. That's what I did.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that from a lot of these hospitals, it's not that there is not a bed available. It's that there is no nursing care to go along with that bed.
Okay.
That's the scary thing.
Okay.
Because, we hear reports of too many patients assigned to one nurse.
Okay.
So that becomes a big issue. One way that they are thinking about maybe trying to stop this from happening is imposing fines once, they can figure out what the information is that they've gotten from this report that they've done. Imposing fines, even a reward system for hospitals who can get a patient in the patient room within a certain amount of time. And that's true, Cindy. The hospitals know on their computer system what rooms are available, and they also know if they have enough nursing staff for those beds. So
I would think
there is a computerized system already in place. The thing is, right now, for those patients in the hallway, a lot of times they get forgotten by the ER staff because in comes someone new with a new set of problems. So the ones laying on the gurney, a lot of times they're forgotten. They may not get their medications on time, et cetera, because emergency rooms are also understaffed.
Right.
And a lot of those emergency rooms are staffed not by the hospital, but by a medical staffing system too.
Yeah. So there's some more things to look into. I mean, I think since I ever remember as a tiny kid, if I heard the story, there's always been nursing shortages. So I don't know what the underlying current of that is. I know I've heard so much stuff. I mean, I'm not in the medical field myself, but to ask people, what is the reasoning behind all that? Is it always money? Is it always hours? Is it over, too much care? I mean, too many patients to care for. That's what I mean by too much care. Expected from personnel, blah, 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 blah. And the bottom line is always in a lot of these settings is the dollar sign. We've talked about that so many times. But it's a serious situation. And the other thing I was going to say, as far as the people left on gurneys in the hallway, then you always have the shift change. So that when the shift change happens and the new shift comes on, just common sense would be some of that paperwork might be lost in the process, if you will. I mean, I can see that being easy to do, even though it's on a computer somewhere. But I mean, whatever you're juggling at your own personal job, how much you can juggle at one time. And are we asking these people too to juggle also that, to remember who's doing what with who and why that's happening? But again, there should be some kind of system in place or whatever. But that's in a perfect world. Everybody makes mistakes, and all the stuff needs to be fixed. On that note, fixing it in the medical setting. Stay tuned to Evergreen Media Network.